All right, today we are going to be looking at the Dynasty running back landscape for players under 25 years old. So again, if they're under 25, they're on this list. And if they're not on this list, that means they're probably over 25, or it means that
they are 25.
Or, well, yes. Or we don't think they're in the top 12. So this is the top 12 guys. We're going to go through. We're going to put these guys into tiers. We're going to rank them. They're good cornerstone assets for your Dynasty team. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We got content like this and more coming out every single week. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you head over to Locals, get our exclusive content there, and let's dive right into this. So with these running backs, the running back position has had a pretty rough year in Dynasty. I mean, when you're looking at how it was being valued a year ago, and then that tier 1, you had Jonathan Taylor. But in the tier 2, you had Swift and Najee and Javonte. And now you're going to see, in this tier list how those guys have fallen. And so you're looking at this and you're thinking, okay, next year this could be completely different. And the answer is absolutely yes. This is subject to change even from the time we are recording it to the time it is released, because this is the most volatile position in Dynasty Fantasy Football. And when you're ranking these guys, I mean, honestly, it's hard to even separate these guys out, because you're looking at it like, well, they're obviously, elite in this aspect of their game, but they're going to be faced with this type of landing spot or situation, or factoring even the rookies in here. We don't even know how the rookies are going to pan out. But I think it is, again, subject to opinion. You're not going to agree with everything we say. Make sure you comment and let us know what you would change. Let us know what you agree with. But this is not gospel. This is just how we view them at this point in time, which, again, could change in a matter of minutes, honestly. With running backs, it always could. So looking at tier 1, yes, we put Bijan at the top. You are welcome. We put him over JT, technically. You're welcome. And a lot of this is just the prospect level and the market value. And reality is Bijan's going higher than Jonathan Taylor right now. So I feel like we have to put, I do believe in Bijan, though, and I do think he can be this good. With that said, I do think he shares a tier with Jonathan Taylor and Breece Hall. So when you're looking at Jonathan Taylor, obviously, disappointing year last year. But why should we not be that low on Jonathan Taylor? I mean, you would know it as good as anybody. I would know it as good as anybody, but,
Yeah, I don't have a short memory. He sprained his ankle, guys, this year.
Pretty good.
And then he sprained it again, and then he sprained the same one again. He just was struggling with an ankle injury, an ankle sprain, not an ACL tear, not an Achilles tear, not anything else crazy, not a broken leg, not an anything, a sprained ankle.
I do still think he's the best running back in the NFL.
Yes.
I mean, he is.
He'll be fine. His ADP drop was natural. He shouldn't have been going as high. We admitted that. He should not have been going as high as the 104 last year. That was crazy. That being said, I mean, if you're looking at a dynasty lifetime in 3-year windows, JT is still going to be around in 3 years, producing a high level with running back 1 overall upside. So I think where he's going right now is real nice.
Two things are going to help JT's situation here. One of them is going to be if the Colts draft a quarterback. And it does look like the Colts are gearing up to draft a quarterback in the NFL draft. And that's really going to help JT, because last year, I mean, people knew, like, either A, Matt Ryan was going to throw an interception, B, he was going to get sacked, or C, they were going to hand the ball off to Jonathan Taylor. So there wasn't a lot of there was not a lot of doubt in terms of NFL defenses that Jonathan Taylor was going to get a heavy workload in, because they did not have any passing threat really whatsoever. I mean, it allowed defenses to adjust, and Jonathan Taylor, being hobbled, he played injured almost all season. I think you guys forget, and people are, well, when he was an RB1, he was nothing like CMC. Well, CMC was special, guys, that year. And we're not going to be looking at that level of production probably for running backs I don't know. That was something.
Yeah.
But JT, just last year, was the RB1. He is still paired with the offensive line is not as good, but room for improvement there.
I think they'll be okay, and their left tackle position has actually looked better than it did at the start of the season. They got that guy Raymond in the 3rd round who looked horrible, and then all of a sudden, kind of like week 10 out of nowhere, he was literally like a top 10 left tackle in the league. Like, I'm not just making that up, but like, he looked incredible. So I think the offensive line situation will get better as that chemistry grows, and honestly, the locker room situation is just going to get better, because they just needed to move on from Frank Reich. It just got spoiled or spoiled there. And I think with Jonathan Taylor, there was something to say about Carson Wentz being a mobile QB and that helping his production, and him having the most productive year of his career thus far in the first 3 years of his career, the year being where he had the most mobile QB in Carson Wentz. They're going to get a mobile QB here with either Bryce Young, Stroud, or Will Levis, and that's going to bode really well for Jonathan Taylor.
And then you got Breece Hall. Also in this tier, I saw today a report that Breece Hall actually could be ready for training camp. I think it was a pretty clean. I think it was a pretty clean ACL tear in terms of it was not a Dobbins or a Javonte tear where there's a bunch of other damage in his knee.
That's awesome.
It is. It's good news, and if he can be ready for the start of next year, I mean, look at what Breece Hall did in his first 6 NFL games. Like, holy cow, he looked fantastic. He's going to look fantastic when he gets back. Again, these ACLs are troublesome. They're not something to just shrug off, but this one seems like it's one that he can recover from and bounce back from. He's a special prospect. He is elite. If he had not torn his ACL, he would be going in the first round of startup drafts fairly easily. That being said, you're getting him at the end of the second, early third right now in startups, and that's a value. So even I drafted Breece Hall last night. Like Breece Hall may be the best value out of these 3 guys. I think you can make the argument for JT.
And just as talented.
And he still hasn't turned 22. So there you go. That's plenty of reasons to take Breece Hall wherever your startup drafts are. Looking at tier 2, and a lot of people will have Kenneth Walker in tier 1 with these guys. Why do we have Kenneth Walker in tier 2?
Because he's just we were wrong about his lack of receiving upside. I don't think he has a lack of receiving upside. I don't think it's as ideal or elite as Breece Hall and Bijan specifically. And then in terms of the running game, like talent, he's just not as good as Jonathan Taylor or Breece Hall or Bijan. No. Like when you watch him, he's not eye popping. He's not amazing. He's a good product of their system. And he's a good running back. He really is. Yeah. He really is. And he has a second round draft capital. That's obviously not a concern. That's why he's so high. But again, I mean, this time next year, I think you could easily see Gibbs and ETN over him if they produce at a high level because of their receiving upside. So I have no problem with Kenneth Walker. I think he's a great cornerstone asset here. He has earned that 4th spot in these running backs under 25. But again, that's why he's not in tier 1.
And looking at Kenneth Walker's game log, and we said, and I don't think we were wrong in being concerned about his lack of receiving upside in college. He just didn't catch the ball. And have the Seahawks used him in that aspect? Yes. And so that's less concerning. But still, looking at the amount of targets he got over his last 4 games, he had 5 in week 15. And after that, he had 2 targets, 1 target, and 1 target.
Yeah, it's hit or miss.
In weeks 12 and 13, before he missed the game against Carolina, he had 1 target in all those games. So he's not really getting elite. Is he getting some work out of the passing game? Yes. Is it enough to elevate his points per game to a level that he belongs in the tier 1? It's not, because when you look at what he did in his last 4 games, although he had, games with 107, 133, 114 rushing yards, he had 12 points in week 15. And then 12.5, and then 15, and then 13. Look, those are fine numbers. Those are startable numbers. Are those elite numbers? No. And why is that? Because in each of those 4 games, he did not score a touchdown. And you can make the argument all you want about how good he is and how he can produce and how he has blah, blah, blah. I mean, you're looking at this year, and in the games where he did not score a touchdown, his production, again, was 4 points, 7 points, 5 points. 13 points, 11 points, 12 points, 15 points, 13 points.
You know who's a lot like this and what he kind of reminds me of in terms of fantasy production?
Who?
J.K. Dobbins, which we'll get to way later down here in this video. But it's the same thing. I mean, if he puts up 90 yards, 100 yards in a game, there is a chance that he only scores 10 points in that game. Yeah. With Bijan, JT, and Breece, if they rush for 100 yards, like that, you're pretty much expecting them. It would be a surprise if they didn't score 20, 25 points that day.
So we like Kenneth Walker. I think he's actually a good value in Dynasty right now because he's not going still until like the late third. Yeah. And I'll take him there.
It's not bad at all.
But that's why he's not up there. And then Jahmyr Gibbs. I love me some Jahmyr Gibbs. This with these rookie running backs, this is based off the level of prospects that they are, the amount of buzz they're getting. We don't have anything to base them on. They haven't played an NFL snap, so it's obviously risky putting them here. But we're willing to call our shots on a couple of these guys, and Gibbs is one of them. Jahmyr Gibbs, an elite passing running back or elite passing game running back. You saw it at Alabama, how they used him through the air, how they even used him on the ground. I'm not concerned with the amount of ground usage he got. He was, technically still splitting a backfield at Alabama, and he got his own every single game. When you translate his production to fantasy points, the man was scoring fantasy points at an elite level at Alabama against SEC competition. He is not Alvin Kamara. He is not as big as Alvin Kamara. He does not have the contact balance that Alvin Kamara had, so that's not really a good comp. Who do we comp him to? I don't know. An Aaron Jones, DeAndre Swift mixture, maybe.
Everyone always hopes for Austin Eckler.
In some rights, right, and I don't see that a whole lot either.
No,
but
neither do I.
In some rights, he's very unique, and whatever NFL team he goes to, it doesn't really matter if he gets first round draft capital. He's in the second tier right away, and he's projected right now as a prospect, and as the buzz he's getting in the NFL draft process, he's projected to go that high in the NFL draft. That says something about Jahmyr Gibbs.
He's everything that people wished James Cook had been.
Oof.
Honestly, he really is. I'm not comparing him to James Cook, but those are the types of receivers that these elite passing offenses are going to be looking for, and that's why I think Gibbs' landing spot is going to be with one of those teams. So,
I mean, James Cook is great value. Jahmyr Gibbs, legit. Jahmyr Gibbs does everything James Cook does, but better. And so when you're, the problem with James Cook was he was elevated from his landing spot, and he's actually James Cook a buy right now in Dynasty leagues, but he's not. He didn't make this list. That we'll kind of explain why here in a little bit. But then in the last person of this tier is ETN, and ETN. I mean, people are fairly down on Travis Etienne right now, and I think it was because as he went through the year, as he finished the season, he had some rough games, and I think people should also take into account that while he had 5 points in the last week against Tennessee and against Houston, he had 23 points. Against the Jets, he still had 14 points. But he had games this year of 18, 25, 26. He's shown that ceiling that we would love to see in Kenneth Walker. Etienne has that ceiling. Why? Because of his targets. When you're looking at Kenneth Walker's game log and you're seeing, maybe some occasionally having more than 3 targets a game, and then most of the time having 2 or 1. Travis Etienne is consistently at 3 or above 3 for the most part. And he's going to get those types of targets. He is going to be the lead back now without James Robinson, who not too long ago was actually going equivalent or above Travis Etienne because people were freaking out about a guy with no draft capital. Travis Etienne has the draft capital. He is only 23 years old. He can catch the ball. He clearly can run the ball, too. He had a really good year on the ground, from the eye test at least. So Etienne belongs in this tier, too, and I think Etienne might be a value that you get in Dynasty drafts at some point, too. I mean, in terms of where he's going at the current moment.
Yeah, I'm with you there. He broke 1,000 yards rushing this season in essentially his rookie year, and with that receiving upside in the future, you got to be excited about that. I do hope they use him in the receiving game more. It seemed like that kind of their game plan looked a little different towards the end of the season than it did at the beginning, and they definitely use ETN less in the passing game towards the end of the year, and that's not his strong point. But with his draft capital, they're going to keep working with this guy. And
tied to Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, he's tied to Trevor Lawrence. He's tied to an elite producing quarterback, which we love.
Which will turn into an elite offense.
Yep.
Tier 3. This is hilarious because these are the guys outside of Zach Evans here that were like tier 1 or tier 2 last year, and all these guys kind of had the same stuff going on with their value. Javonte Williams obviously tore his ACL, a pretty nasty ACL tear.
It was a bad one.
But again, the problem with his value was always that Melvin Gordon is there, and Melvin Gordon is not there. So when Javonte comes back, and people are like, well, I don't think they're going to use him very differently when he comes back. I actually would wager to say that once he's healthy, fully healthy, number one, he's only 22 years old still, so he's still very young. But number 2, I think when he comes back, they're going to let him have the reins. I think they are well aware of his talent level. I think he's a very good running back. And again, tier 3 in running backs under 25, that's not saying a lot. So we've obviously moved him down a lot, and that's factoring for the risk coming back from a very nasty injury. That's factoring for the fact that maybe the Broncos won't use him as they should. However, they have a new coaching staff, so that is also something you need to take into account. And with Javonte, there is some risk, but you're getting him in the 5th or 6th round of startups. That is a good value. I like Javonte Williams. I think he comes back, and I think he has a good year. Maybe not this year, but the year after. You've got to be weary of those running backs the year after they tear their ACL.
Yeah, we learned that with Dobbins.
But a guy who looks like he always tore his ACL when he runs, but actually has no injuries at all, is Najee Harris. And I think for me, I love to crap on Najee. Like,
so funny.
I love how mad it makes some of my buddies. Like, I think when I'm looking at Najee Harris, the comp for him. The guy I think that he looks the most like in terms of running style, in terms of production, in terms of career outlook, is Trent Richardson. I think Najee Harris is a carbon copy of Trent Richardson. I'm obviously being sarcastic. He had a fairly good end of the year last year, and I actually have no problem with Najee where he's going. I think he's being drafted now where he should be drafted, though. So I don't think he's a value. I don't think that he's somebody that's going to blow the doors off of a scoring wise in your fantasy leagues. But I do think the Steelers are going to continue to use him right. I do think it is going to be the norm for him to get the level of snap share that he did last year with Jaylen Warren. I think that's kind of the norm for every running back in the NFL. So it doesn't really hurt him a lot, but at the same time, people thought he was going to get the volume he did his rookie year, and that's just simply not going to happen. So
yeah, I think it's interesting to see that the Steelers did talk about going into last season, going into 2022. They're like, you know what, we're going to bring Najee's usage down a little bit, and they definitely delivered on that, especially in the second half of the season. And that's when he turned it on. Sometimes less is more. And I think with Najee, him not being probably as talented as we thought he could have been going in the first round a couple years ago in the NFL draft, I think they are going to, with Mike Tomlin, who's one of the best coaches in the NFL, they're going to find the best way to use him. And I think they have found that in this Kenny Pickett-led offense. I mean, you're talking some of these last few games, 63%, 64%, 72, 66, 56, 66. Like that's from weeks 13 on to week 18. And that's when he really started to take off. He never really went anywhere beyond 20 points, but his floor was really nice there. His floor was more than 10 points, and he wasn't touchdown dependent. He did get a little more efficient in the run game. It was inconsistent because he's not that great of a runner, but he also had a couple of games there where he had 6 targets. He had 9 targets.
Nice.
And then you sprinkle on a couple touchdowns here and there, and he's going to get some decent production there. Not a crazy ceiling, not as high as those guys in the tiers above him, because we just don't think he's as good as they are. But it is encouraging to see him starting to produce at a consistent level, and that efficiency from a yards per carry basis going up a little bit. So a guy that I really don't have a problem with Najee. I was just really joking. So if Steelers fans can get in the comments and you're like Najee Harris. Yeah, I don't really care. It's pretty funny.
DeAndre Swift is a guy that I was really high on last year, and it's a guy I still really like his skill set. He's a guy that has consistently broken my heart in Dynasty because I had a lot of DeAndre Swift shares.
It's tough stuff.
I mean, I'll just tell you, I really don't like Jamal Williams. I really don't, because I would watch DeAndre Swift make these incredible plays, be very efficient with his touches. Take a screen pass 35 yards, take a run play 60 yards, and get tackled at the 1 yard line. It happened. I don't understand how you can get tackled at that. Just dive, dude. But every time, it never failed. He gets the 1 yard line, and then Dan Campbell would say, "Get out of there! You got us here. You deserve to get this score. You're not scoring." And Jamal, get in there. And Jamal Williams just. Can you imagine if DeAndre Swift got the red zone touches that Jamal Williams does?
Oh, he would easily be a top 5 RB, not just in fantasy, but in Dynasty.
It's a great place for a running back. The problem is they want to use 3 of them, and DeAndre Swift is the most talented by far. It's not close. He's more talented than Jamal Williams. I don't think anybody would argue that. But Jamal Williams he had 14, 15 touchdowns this year, right?
It's not even fair.
It's stupid.
Swift still, again, he had one of those end-of-season resurgences where he started producing at that elite level that we thought he was capable of doing every single week. But, what are you going to do with that 41.8% snap share? Like, they just don't start him. He was consistently in most of these games. Like, he was only playing in the 30% of the team's snaps that game. But look what he does with the opportunities he has. I'm looking at week 17 here specifically against Chicago. 7 yards per carry. He had 11 carries for 78 yards and a touchdown, and then 9.75 yards per catch. 4 targets, 4 receptions for 39 yards and another touchdown. Like, he is just electric when you watch him play. But again, he's not. He's only 5'9", 208 pounds. That BMI is okay, but that size overall is just not ideal. And he's struggled with injury consistently throughout his career for the first 3 years of his career. And I think that is a concern looking forward. But again, in terms of a cornerstone young running back asset, he's still worth a roster spot where he's going here in ADP. So
yeah. And then we've got Zach Evans in this tier too, and this is an interesting one because historically we've been fairly high on Sean Tucker. And then again, this is going off the level of prospect and then the amount of buzz that each prospect is getting. And Sean Tucker's really just not trending in the right direction right now. Comfortable. enough for us to be comfortable putting him here in this third tier or even in this fourth tier with some of these guys. So with Zach Evans, there's honestly, the more I watch him, the more I like him. There's a lot I like about Zach Evans. I like that he is a running back that, has the size to be a workhorse back in the NFL. He breaks tackles and has the strength of a running back that can be a workhorse back in the NFL. He can make something out of nothing. He's getting fairly good at things like tracking the ball over his shoulder, things like being able to work a little bit in the receiving game, which is going to be very valuable at the next level. It's something we look for in all of our running back prospects. But I get how strong he is. I like the way he runs. I think he has fairly good vision. His initial burst is very nice. I like Zach Evans a lot. And I think that some of these running back prospects has a very high ceiling. I think an NFL team could absolutely like what they see and take him in the second round of the draft. And if he got that draft capital, he went to a team that needed a running back, I would really like his skill set there. So again, with the rookies, this is early. We do not know. This could be completely different and probably will be completely different even in just 3 months after the combine. But that's kind of who we have here now. And then moving down to tier 4, talk about Sharbs, because Zach Charbonnet he's been one of my favorite backs since last year. I wanted him to come out last year, and he didn't, and I was bummed. Now he's finally doing it, and I'm really excited we have him here at number 11 in our top 12 running backs under 25.
Yeah, there's not much else I have to say about him right now because this isn't a Charbonnet video. We could talk 20 minutes alone about Zach Charbonnet because we like him so much. We talk about him plenty in this YouTube channel. His production at UCLA has been amazing for the last couple of years. And we really like a lot of aspects of his game. We think he is elusive. We think he's a good overall running back. He does have the receiving skill set. He does have pretty much every tool that you'd like in a running back that can be successful in the NFL.
Size is there something, and you can ask, is there something that Zach Charbonnet does extremely well? Is there one completely elite trait that he has?
He's just good at everything.
Probably not. He's good at it. I mean, he's just very, very well-rounded. Yep. The only other running back this high that is really, really well-rounded like that in this year's draft is Bijan Robinson. And he's just elite at multiple things. That's why Bijan is such a highly touted prospect. He's well-rounded, but he's elite at everything. And Zach Charbonnet, I wouldn't say he's elite at hardly anything, but he's just very good at everything. So he's like a miniature Bijan in terms of the well-roundedness and the ability to get going in the passing game. Not going to be the fastest guy in terms of breakaway speed, but he is. And JCJ says he comps him to a more athletic James Conner, which I love that comp. When
that's awesome.
Go watch a Zach Charbonnet film after this and see what you think, because I think we're onto something here. I think an NFL team is going to be onto something as well. And then the last spot, the one that we fought over, because this could be J.K. Dobbins, which is who we picked. Initially, I had Ramondre Stevenson here. I think you can make an argument for not Dameon Pierce. Don't whine about Pierce in the comments. Again, we don't care. Rashad White, James Cook, I think those guys you can make an argument. I don't think Cam Akers, B-Rob, Algier, I don't think outside of any of those guys there's a really good argument. So with Dobbins, why do you like him over Ramondre? Because that was kind of your call, so I'll let you defend that.
Yeah, I mean, with that style of offense that the Ravens have been running for years, it definitely, I mean, they do cater towards that true committee backfield system, but Dobbins is clearly and by far and away the most talented running back there. And Gus Edwards isn't going to be there forever. In fact, I think they might let him go at the end of the season here, and we'll see what they do in the draft. I mean, they absolutely could draft another running back and continue that sort of style of play that they like to do. However, this could change. This offense could change because they did fire Greg Roman. Finally.
It will change, actually. Greg Roman's a very unique offensive coordinator.
Yes, he absolutely is. And part of that is the run game. So I think this, in terms of fantasy production, could really help J.K. Dobbins because, I mean, you guys have been watching Dobbins just like we have. Saw him in the playoffs, and we saw him towards the end of the season really produce at the level that we thought he could, and is that good of that good running back that we thought he could be pre-injury. And he really seems to be coming out of that really devastating knee injury well. With Ramondre Stevenson, this is, for me personally, this is really more about Ramondre Stevenson and the history of the Steelers' backfield more than anything, because we all know this is the Patriots' backfield. What do running backs do for New England? They produce at a high level for no more than 2 to 3 years, and then they're gone. Why would you? The Patriots never re-sign a running back to a big long-term deal on a second contract ever. They just draft another running back that fits their system later. Ramondre is a really great back. Really enjoy watching him. He's had his struggles towards the end of the season here with fumbles, and he really just kind of, in terms of production, sort of fell off, really.
At the end of the year, yeah.
But
because Damian Harris came back.
There's that's funny, too. Everyone's so down on Damian Harris, but this is how the Patriots use their running backs.
Bill
it just
does not
is.
care.
I'm never comfortable about a
not.
New England backfield ever, and I'll take Dobbins all day personally. And he's going. What's his ADP compared to Ramondre? Is it higher, lower, the same?
I would imagine Ramondre is going higher.
Yeah, Ramondre's going just a little bit higher, though. Ramondre's ADP is 68.9, Dobbins is 73.8. So they're almost going back-to-back here after really, in the 6th round, 7th round. So give me Dobbins.
And I think the other argument that you can be made is Greg Roman, in his offenses, and there was a tweet by RG3, if you want to throw this up, that he kind of explained that in Greg Roman's offensive schemes, that tight ends and running backs love that offensive scheme because they eat in that scheme, and wide receivers actually hate playing for Greg Roman in his offenses. And so a lot of people were taking that as by Rashad Bateman, and maybe that would have a negative impact on J.K. Dobbins, which is interesting to me.
That is really interesting.
It's something definitely to ponder on too. So that could be a counter argument to that. And the other, and the other counter argument to putting Ramondre in there would be that Ramondre, even in the last couple games of the season, had 5 targets, 4 targets, 6 targets, and that's something we really like in a PPR bag. So again, let us know what you think about that. But J.K. Dobbins is a safe pick for now. If he does come back, and if they do not draft a running back, J.K. Dobbins is probably going to be the guy there. And he's looked fairly good actually coming back in the last couple of weeks. And I think he has expressed some dislike with how he's been used, and how he wants to be the guy, and he wants even more usage. So we'll see if whoever comes in to run that offense does that. Obviously, it also matters if Lamar is there, but looks like Lamar is going to be there, so that shouldn't change either. But let us know what you think of these rankings. Again, this is just how we see it. This is current point in time. There's a lot of flexibility with the rookies. This is not gospel. We are not telling you that we know better. We're just looking at this. We're evaluating it from an analytical standpoint and from an eye test standpoint, and then we're just kind of giving it to you, packaged as a deal. Here are the top 4 tiers. Here are the top 12 running backs. Again, you can have your own opinions. You're not wrong. Nobody is wrong for thinking differently than this. This is just kind of the way we see it. So if you like this content, and if you like the content that we are putting out, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because we have content like this every single week. And during the offseason, it's really important to have stuff like that to make sure that you are leveling up your Dynasty team to win your leagues the next year. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you like the video, especially if you have made it this far. We appreciate you watching. As always, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you later.